We've talked a lot on this channel over the years about the 3DS and how amazing of a handheld that is, but honestly, the original DS does not get enough respect, and oftentimes that's simply because all the DS games are playable on the 3DS, and in a way, the 3DS is just the perfect replacement to make the DS be completely obsolete. But when you consider the cost of a DS, which on eBay goes for under $50 complete with a charger, if you buy a Japanese model, and that's typically the case with these handhelds, the PSP as well, where if you buy one out of Japan, and again, they're region free, you're modding it anyways, doesn't really matter what region it's from, it's gonna be a much better price. So for under 50 bucks, a DSi is probably the best handheld you can get. I mean, even beating out a $50 Android phone. If you're looking for something that you can just bring with you, kind of beat the crap out of and not have to worry too much about, or give to a young kid as their first handheld, the DS is definitely the way to go, particularly the DSi, because I want to talk about how easy it is to get these systems up and running, games just in a backup sense, without having to spend $100+ in Pokemon Soul Silver. You can get yourself the ability to play that game using either a simple SD card mod, which only works with the DSi, but does give you the option to also play GBA games. I know that's a big sell for people modding the 3DS. That's a big reason why they want to do it. You can actually do that on the DSi as well. You can't do it on the DS Lite or the original DS, but you can do it on the DSi, and that's why I think for 50 bucks, the DSi is the way to go, but you can get the DS Lite sometimes cheaper. However, that has the Game Boy Advance slot, and the fact that it has the GBA slot sometimes makes it be a little bit more coveted to get, so those prices do kind of fluctuate. Now, in my opinion, the GBA is very sought after for nostalgia reasons, and the DS is kind of like the GBA Plus to me. You're getting some early 3D games on the DS, sure, but there's just some remarkable 2D games that look fantastic, that kind of look like enhanced versions of the kind of graphics you'd see on the GBA, and that's why I think the DS really is very timeless, and I think that the dual screen aspect of it is something that's not well emulated. Now, if you want to look at, a really easy way to get this up and running custom games, you simply buy yourself a flash cart via one of these 208-in-1 cartridges. I've talked about this product a lot on the channel. I'm not sponsored by it or anything like that. In fact, there's not even one real seller consistently of it. It's just something you're going to find on eBay for around $20, $25. It's a cartridge you pop into any DS model, be it that fat original DS, the DS Lite, the DSi, even the 3DS it works on. In most cases, I've heard people having trouble on the 3DS with it, but for sure on that original DS hardware, very easy, just pop this cartridge in like you would any other game. And what you end up finding is that it's actually an Ace 3DS flash cartridge that comes preloaded with 208 games, including all the Pokemon games and many other hard hitters, things like Mario Kart, as well as some other RPGs that are very expensive that, while are not particular interest to me, are particular interest to RPG fans, since this is the cheapest way to go about getting them. While the micro SD card that actually is slotted into the game cartridge, as crazy as that sounds, is a very cheap micro SD card that people oftentimes recommend you replace, and I do too. The cartridge itself has lasted me years of play, and it's not something that has, a time bomb or any sort of technical issues that will result in it stopping working over the years. I know I've seen people, show, oh my gosh, it's like cracked the moment it came in, out of the box. I haven't had an experience like that. In my opinion, it's a very good way to get access to 208 of the best games on the system for a relatively inexpensive price. When you think 20, 25 bucks, and Soul Silver alone is going to be like 100, and it's on there. The DS library alone is huge, and obviously having that and the 3DS library accessible to you on a 3DS is awesome, but from a budget perspective and just overall value, I can't find a better handheld than the DS, and that's because there are constantly new games I find out about that were released on this platform that I had no idea ever were released here. I mean, there's so many games that got console versions and then got these weird DS ports that you've never heard of. They're just kind of amusing to check out in a way. Like, you didn't even know they existed, and it's just amusing to find out about. Not to mention the fact that there are, some great Pokemon titles on here. In many people's opinions, some of the last great Pokemon titles, even though I would argue that Sun and Moon were my favorite. Add in the fact that a modded DSi can play those GBA games like I mentioned, and you really have yourself an amazing retro handheld, and the form factor of it is fantastic. I just love the fact that you can just fold the system in half, plop it back in your pocket, and there's really nothing that sort of has that intense of portability as the DS line of systems. So if you've been on the fence for a few years about getting a 3DS and you've watched them increase in price that entire time and now you feel like it's kind of gotten away from you because it's just too expensive anymore, consider a DS, or consider giving a DS to somebody young who you want to get into gaming. You know, maybe it's your child, maybe it's your niece or your nephew, and you want to get them into gaming. I think this is the best system to do it with when they're, 4 or 5 years old, instead of handing them an Android tablet or an iPad and telling them to go at those games with all their microtransactions and shadiness. This is a complete offline experience that you really can't get anywhere else for this type of price. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.